0% match. The doctor looked at the report, then glanced back at me. Mr. Clark, are you certain you're the biological father? I froze for a second. Of course. The doctor hesitated. I'd recommend you get a paternity test. I didn't say anything. I just took the report and walked out his office. Sarah was waiting in the hallway. The color drained from her face when she saw me. How'd it go? No match. She let out a breath. She was relieved. Well, if it's not a match, it's not a match. We'll find someone else, she said, pulling me toward the elevators. We have the money. I'm sure we can find a match in the donor registry. I want to run another test. Her hand on my arm went rigid. What kind of test? The doctor said a 0% match is rare. Still the hair. He suggested I get a paternity test. Her face went pale. Why would you do that? It's not a match, so what? It's not like we can't afford the treatment. Seeing the panic in her eyes, I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. I'm getting the test. 1. The hospital corridor was long, the smell of antiseptic sharp in the air. I sat alone on a bench, the compatibility report crumpled in my fist. 0%. A 0% chance of a father-son match. I read it 3 times, over and over. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Where are you? Why aren't you home yet? The hospital. About the test. Don't overthink it. Her voice was rushed. The doctor said the registry can find a match. I'm getting a paternity test. Silence on the other end of the line. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. What? What did you say? I said, I enunciated every syllable. I'm getting paternity test. Are you insane? Her voice turned shrill. Leo is in his room waiting for us to save his life. And you're running off to get a paternity test? It was the doctor's recommendation. What does the doctor know? You're his father. Don't you trust your own wife? I didn't answer. Ethan, she yelled my name. What the hell are you trying to do? Find out the truth. The truth about what? About me? Her voice got louder. Fine, test away. And after you get your results, you tell me who's going to save Leo's life. I hung up. 3 days later, the results came in. Conclusion. Ethan Clark is excluded as the biological father. I stared at the words for a long time. Black ink on a white page, an official stamp at the bottom. Excluded. Biological father. The son I had raised for 8 years wasn't mine. The child who called me dad shared none of my blood. I sat in my car and lit a cigarette. 8 years. Sarah and I had been married for 8 years. When Leo was born, I waited outside the delivery room for 6 hours. My hands were shaking when the nurse finally brought him out. 7 pounds, 9 ounces. A boy. I named him Leo. The first time he said Dada, I was so happy I couldn't sleep. On his first day of preschool, I hid outside the gate, watching him for half the morning. When he had a fever, I held him all night long. 8 years. I thought he was my son. Ash fell onto my pants, the heat stinging my leg. I stubbed out the cigarette, started the car, and drove home. Sarah was in the living room, watching TV. She stood up when I walked in. You're back. Have you eaten? I can heat up. The paternity test came back. She froze. What? What were the results? I tossed the report onto the coffee table. See for yourself. She didn't move. Ethan, you. 8 years. I cut her off. Sarah. 8 years. Her lips trembled. I can explain. Explain what? You still there. Explain that Leo isn't my son? Or explain when you started cheating on me? I didn't. No. I laughed coldly. The DNA test is right there. Are you still going to lie to me? She suddenly crumpled to the floor, burying her face in her hands and sobbing. Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just stood there, watching her cry. 8 years. I've been played for a fool for 8 years. 2. Sarah cried for a long time. I sat on the sofa and waited for her to finish. Talk, I said finally. Whose is he? She just shook her head. Tell me. I can't say. Fine, don't. I stood up. I think I've already figured out anyway. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. What did you figure out? Your phone passcode is Leo's birthday, I said. 6 digits. You haven't changed it in 8 years. The color drained from her face again. You went through my phone? Not yet. I held out my hand. But I'd like to now. No. She scrambled backward a step. Ethan, that's my privacy. Privacy? I laughed. You want to talk to me about privacy? You have no right to look at my phone. Then I'll call the police. I pulled out my own phone. Let them get a warrant. You? Unless, I stared at her. You have something you don't want me to see? She stood there trembling. Fine. She pulled her phone from her pocket and handed it to me. I punched in the code and opened her iMessage. The first pinned conversation at the top was with a contact named Mark Wagner. I tapped on it. The most recent message was from last night. Babe, any news on how Leo's treatment is going? Babe. He called her babe. I started scrolling up. Miss you. Miss you too. When can I see you? Maybe when Ethan goes on his next business trip. Why doesn't he travel more? So annoying. Just be patient. Once Leo is better, we can. I stopped reading. I kept scrolling up. The chat history was long. Very, very long. It started in 2016, the year I married Sarah, the year Leo was born. I looked up at her. Who is Mark Wagner? She didn't speak. I asked you, who is Mark Wagner? He's an old co-worker. An old co-worker who calls you babe? He's just kidding around. Kidding around? I shoved the phone in her face. Look at this conversation. It's been going on for 8 years. 8 years, Sarah. She was crying, shaking her head. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I took a step closer. You tell me, what is it? Leo is his, isn't he? She said nothing. Isn't he? Yes. Her voice was a whisper, but I heard it clearly. Yes. Leo was Mark's son. I stood there, feeling the blood turn to ice in my veins. Ethan. Sarah grabbed my sleeve. He forced himself on me. Back when we first got married, you were always working late, and Mark... So you cheated? No. He came on to me. I didn't want any of this to happen. You didn't want this? I ripped my arm away. You slept with him, got pregnant with his child, and let me raise him for 8 years, and you're telling me you didn't want this? I made a mistake. I made a mistake. She fell to her knees, grabbing my legs. Ethan, please don't divorce me. We still have Leo. Now, I sneered. Leo is Mark Wagner's son. You can have him go find Mark. He's in the hospital. He needs to be saved. Perfect, I said, crouching down to look her in the eyes. Let his real father save him. 3. I didn't go home that night. I drove around the city for hours, finally parking by the lakefront. The wind coming off Lake Michigan was strong, and it cleared my head. 8 years. I replayed the last 8 years in my mind. Waking up at 6 every morning, out the door by 7. Home from the office by 8 at night to help Leo with his homework. Weekends at the zoo, summer vacations at the beach. When he was sick, I stayed up all night watching over him. When he learned to walk, I was the one holding his hands. On his first day of school, I was the one who dropped him off. I thought I was a good father. 8 years. I bought Sarah a house. The down payment was $40,000, a gift from my parents. The mortgage was $2,500 a month. I paid it myself. I bought Sarah a car. $28,000, financed over 3 years. I made every payment. My take-home pay was $10,000 a month. I deposited $8,000 of it into our joint account. She didn't work. She said she wanted to stay home and raise our son. I said, okay. I thought this was happiness. 8 years. $500,000. I did the math. The mortgage, the car, Leo's private school tuition, all the household bills. $500,000. That I gave to Sarah. No. That I gave to Mark Wagner. I supported his woman and raised his son. I was their walking ATM for 8 years. My phone rang. It was Sarah. I ignored it. She called again. I ignored it again. The third time I answered. Ethan, where are you? By the lake. What are you doing? Don't do anything stupid. I laughed. Sarah, do you really think I'd do something stupid over you? Then what? I'm thinking, 8 years, $500,000, I said. How do you plan on paying me back? Silence. Ethan, you? How much does Mark make a year? The two of you combined, how many years will it take to pay that off? What are you talking about? I'm being perfectly clear. I stared out at the dark water. You owe me $500,000. I don't owe you anything, she shrieked. For 8 years I cooked and cleaned for you and raised our child. I don't owe you a thing. Raised our child? I sneered. You raised Mark Wagner's child. But you raised him too. I raised him. Yes. You chose to raise him. I never forced you. My grip tightened on the phone. Sarah, say that again. It's the truth. Her voice got louder. It took you 8 years to find out, which must mean he was raised pretty damn well. You always said you loved him. Why don't you love him now? I love my son. He is your son. After 8 years, what's the difference? I took a deep breath. The difference is his father's name is Mark, not me. I hung up the phone. Standing by the water, I smoked another cigarette. Fine. Just fine. You're right, Sarah. After 8 years, there's no difference. So let Mark keep on paying. I got back in my car and drove home. No, not my home. It was Sarah and Mark's home. I was just a guy who paid the bills. 4. I took the next day off work. First, I went to the bank and got printouts of the statements from our joint account. The account my paycheck was directly deposited into. 8 years of statements made a thick stack of paper. I went through them page by page. March 2018. A Venmo transfer $4.1000. Memo, watch for my man. My man, not me. July 2019. A Zelle payment $4.2000. Memo, vacation. She told me she was taking Leo to Florida by herself. Turns out she went with Mark. December 2020. A transfer $4.500. Memo, birthday gift. Mark's birthday is in December. I kept flipping through the pages. There were so many transfers. A new one every month or two. $500, $1,000, $2,000. 8 years. I counted them. 47 transactions, totaling over $25,000. She used my money to buy gifts for her lover. I put the statements away and drove to the county recorder's office. I looked up the deed to the house. It was in both my name and Sarah's. No transfer of ownership had been filed. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least she hadn't managed to pull that off yet. Back at the hospital, Leo was lying in his bed. He had lost so much weight, his face was pale. He smiled when he saw me. Dad, a pang of sadness hit me. Hey, buddy, I came to see you. Dad, when can I go home? Soon. I stroked his hair. Just listen to the doctors, keep fighting, and you'll be home before you know it. Okay. He lay back down obediently. I sat by his bedside for a while. This kid, I had raised him for 8 years. Those feelings weren't fake. But I looked at his face. His eyebrows weren't like mine. His eyes weren't like mine. His nose wasn't like mine either. How had I never noticed before? Sarah appeared. She stood in the doorway, watching me. We need to talk. About what? About Leo. I stood up and followed her into the hallway. Go on. Ethan, Leo needs a bone marrow transplant. Her voice was low. The registry hasn't found a match yet, and we're running out of time. I know. Can you please? Just put everything else aside for now. She looked at me, her eyes welling up. Once Leo is better, we can talk about anything. Talk about anything? I looked at her. Sarah, are you asking me to keep playing dumb until the kid is healthy? That's not what I meant. The boy needs bone marrow. I cut her off. His biological father is the best chance for a match. Her face went white. What? What are you saying? Go find Mark Wagner, I said. Tell him to get tested. He'll never agree. Why not? I sneered. It's his son. He doesn't know. Doesn't know? I never told him. I was stunned. What did you say? I never told him Leo was his son, Sarah said, staring at the floor. I was afraid he wouldn't take responsibility. I burst out laughing. So you had me take responsibility instead? Ethan. Sarah, you're incredible, I said, looking at her in disbelief. You get pregnant with another man's child and convince me he's mine. You're afraid the real dad won't be responsible, so you stick me with the job. You don't tell him he has a son, so he won't come around causing problems. You killed 3 birds with 1 stone. She didn't say a word. And now the boy is sick, I continued. Now he needs bone marrow. And you still want me to play the fool and take responsibility? Leo is innocent in all of this. Yes, he is, I nodded. Which is why you should go find his real father and have him save his son. But, no buts. I turned to leave. I'm done talking. Ethan, she called after me. I didn't look back. 5. That evening, Sarah texted me. I contacted Mark. And what did he say? He doesn't believe me. Doesn't believe what? That Leo is his son. I scoffed. Then tell him to get a paternity test. He won't do it. He won't. I thought for a moment. Tell him if he doesn't show up, I'll make this whole thing public. What are you planning to do? Doesn't he have a family? Sarah didn't reply. A long time later, a new message came through. You've changed, Ethan. I put down my phone. Changed. 8 years ago, I was a fool. Now I was just awake. The next day, Sarah called me. Mark agreed to the paternity test. When Tomorrow. Good. I hung up. 3 days later, the results were in. Mark Wagner and Leo. Paternity confirmed. I took the report and went to find Sarah. She was in Leo's room with him. Step outside. She followed me into the hall. I showed her the report. Now you have definitive proof. Her hands were shaking as she looked at the paper. Ethan, 8 years, $500,000, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I raised Mark Wagner's son for 8 years and served as your personal bank. Sarah, you owe me. How are you going to pay it back? I don't have any money. No money. I pulled the stack of bank statements from my bag. What about the $25,000 you sent to Mark? Where did that come from? Her face turned even paler. You went through my accounts. 47 transactions. I flipped through the pages for her. 500, 1,000, 2,000. A watch, a vacation, birthday presents. Sarah, you took my money and spent it on your lover. I didn't. No. I pointed to an entry on the statement. What's this? Read it yourself. She stood there, speechless. Ethan, I know I was wrong. Wrong? I laughed. And being wrong just erases everything. What do you want from me? It's simple. I put the statements away. A divorce. I get the house, I get the car. You walk away with nothing. That's impossible. Impossible. I looked at her. Sarah, do you really think you're in any position to negotiate? My name is on the deed to the house. Yes, it is. I nodded. But I made the down payment, and I made every single mortgage payment. You're the one who had an affair. You're the party at fault. If this goes to court, how much do you really think you'll get? She didn't answer. Besides, I continued, you tricked me into raising another man's child for 8 years. If that gets out, how do you think a judge is going to rule? Her lips were trembling. Ethan, you can't do this. Do what? He stared at her coldly. Sarah, when you were sleeping with Mark, did you think of me? When you were using my money to buy him gifts, did you think of me? When you let me raise another man's son for 8 years, did you ever once think of me? She broke down crying. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And now you're going to pay the price. I turned away. You'll be hearing from my lawyer in 3 days. Ethan, she was sobbing behind me. I didn't turn back. 6. Back at the office, I called a lawyer. I explained the whole situation. He was quiet for a few seconds after I finished. Mr. Clark, the evidence you have is very strong, he said. The DNA tests, the text messages, the bank transfers. If we take this to court, you'll almost certainly be awarded the majority share of the house. The majority? Her name is on the deed, the lawyer explained. But given that she is the party at fault, the judge will rule accordingly. We can also sue for emotional distress. Good. One more thing, the lawyer added. Regarding child support. What about it? Since the child is not biologically yours, you have no legal obligation to support him. However, since you have supported him for 8 years, you could, in theory, sue the biological father to recover those costs. I thought about it. Let's hold off on that for now. Understood. I'll start preparing the paperwork. We'll have a letter sent within 3 days. Thank you. I hung up. I sat in my office, looking out the window. The streets below were bustling with traffic. I had worked my ass off in this city for 10 years. I started as a junior associate making $40,000 a year and worked my way up to a manager making $120,000. Bought a house, got married, had a kid. I thought my life was a success story. Turns out it was a joke. My phone rang. It was Sarah. I hesitated, then answered. What is it? Ethan, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is, she said, her voice strangely calm. About the house. We can talk about the house in court. You're that eager to sue me? You forced my hand. Did I? She scoffed. Ethan, how much do you make a month? Do you know how much a good lawyer costs? Can you even afford this fight? That's not your problem. I'm not worried. Her voice turned icy. I'm just reminding you. You make a pathetic salary. With me, at least Leo still has a rich biological father. A rich biological father. She was talking about Mark. What did you say? You heard me, she said, her voice full of scorn. Ethan, you think you're some prize? Always at work, never paying attention to anything at home. I was the one raising a child by myself and taking care of you. Do you have any idea how hard that was? At least Mark is considerate. I clenched my fist around the phone. Sarah, what are you talking about? The truth, she shrieked. All you know is work, work, work. Where were you when your son was sick? What right do you have to call yourself a father? Me? I sneered. The reason I have no right to be his father is because he was never mine to begin with. Then why do you think I married you? Her voice escalated. It's because Mark was broke back then. I thought you had potential, but look at you. 8 years later, still stuck with the same dead-end salary. So you cheated on me? So what if I did? She was screaming now. You couldn't give me the life I wanted. What's wrong with me finding it for myself? I took a deep breath. Fine. What's fine? You've made your point, Sarah, I said calmly. And I got all on tape. The line went dead quiet. You recorded me. I did. You. She cursed at me and hung up. I looked at the audio file on my phone. 3 minutes. More than enough. 7. On the third day, Mark Wagner showed up. He was standing outside the hospital, dressed in a tailored suit and wearing a gold watch. About 38, owned a small business, probably cleared a few $100,000 a year. This was the rich biological father Sarah had been talking about. I walked over. Mr. Wagner. He glanced at me, frowning. You're Ethan Clark? I am. What do you want? To talk. I gestured to the coffee shop next door. Care to join me? He hesitated, then nodded. We found a table in the corner. The waitress came over, and I ordered 2 black coffees. Mark leaned back in his chair, sizing me up. All right, what's this about? It's about your son. His expression soured. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I slid the paternity test results across the table. DNA proof. You and Leo, paternity confirmed. He stared at the report, his face grim. So, your son is in the hospital, I said. He has leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. You are his best chance for a match. Why should I be the one to do it? Because you're his father. He sneered. You raised him for 8 years. Now you don't want him anymore, so you're trying to dump the responsibility on me. I raised him for 8 years because I didn't know he wasn't mine. That's your problem. My problem? I looked at him. Mark, when you were sleeping with my wife, did you ever consider this problem? His face darkened. What are you getting at? Nothing. I took a sip of coffee. I just want to know what you plan to do. This has nothing to do with me, he said, standing up. Whoever raised him can deal with it. Sit down. You. I said sit down. My voice was cold. Mark, do you really think you could just walk away? He stood there, staring at me. What do you want? It's simple. I placed my phone on the table. You get tested, and you save your son. Then, you're going to take on the responsibilities you've been avoiding. What responsibilities? Child support, I said. Over the last 8 years, I've spent $500,000 raising your son. You're going to pay me back. On what grounds? On the grounds that he's your son. He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he laughed. Come on, Ethan, be real. You're a man. I'm a man. Put yourself in my shoes. Could you have resisted? I was taken aback. What? Sarah was a knockout back in the day, he said, leaning back and crossing his legs. I chased her for 3 years. She only married you because I didn't have any money then, but she always had a thing for me. Did you really think you married some kind of saint? I looked at his smug face. Are you finished? I am. Good. I stood up. Mark, if you don't want to take responsibility, I won't force you. But there's one thing you should think about. What's that? You have a wife, I said, looking him in the eye. Does she know you have a son with another woman? His expression changed instantly. You wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I? I sneered. You played me for a fool for 8 years. Your son is lying in a hospital bed. And you think you can just walk away clean? Are you threatening me, Ethan? It's not a threat. I picked up my phone. It's a statement of fact. I turned and walked out. You son of... I could hear him cursing behind me. I didn't pay him any attention. Outside the coffee shop, I sent Sarah a text. Mark refuses to get tested. He says the kid has nothing to do with him. A moment later, she replied, What are we going to do? Figure out yourself. Ethan, Leo could die. He's your son. I typed, paused, then continued. It has nothing to do with me. I silenced my phone. I stood in front of the hospital, watching people come and go. Leo, a part of me still ached. You don't just erase 8 years of love and connection overnight. But I couldn't be a fool anymore. 8. That night, Sarah called. Mark agreed to the transplant. What happened? His wife found out. Her voice was weary. I don't know who told her. She showed up at his office and caused a huge scene. Mark had no choice. I didn't say anything. The who, of course, was me. It wasn't hard to find his company's address. All it took was an anonymous letter to his wife with a copy of the DNA test. She knew what to do with the rest. Ethan, Sarah's voice dropped. Was it what? Nothing. She sighed. He's been tested, and it's a strong match. The transplant is scheduled for next week. Good. There's something else. She paused. I want to discuss it with you. What? The divorce. What is there to discuss? The house. Her voice was small. Can't you leave me with something? Sarah, do you really think you're in a position to be making demands? I have to live somewhere. You can go live with Mark. His wife is divorcing him. He's got his own mess to deal with. That's your problem. I cut her off. Not mine. Ethan, her voice suddenly shrieked. Do you have to be so cruel? You were cruel first. I was wrong. I've admitted I was wrong. What more do you want? Admitting it? I sneered. Sarah, do you know what admitting you're wrong means? It means you have to face the consequences. What consequences? You leave with nothing. Never. Her voice was out of control. We can get a divorce, but the house and the car are mine. If you don't agree, I'll report you for domestic abuse. I was stunned. What did you say? I said. Her voice lowered, laced with threat. You've hit me before. I have bruises. I'll go to the hospital, get a report, and file charges. I have never laid a hand on you. Whether you did or not is for the judge to decide. I took a deep breath. Sarah, have you lost your mind? You're the one who pushed me to this. She was hysterical. Ethan, you ruined my life, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. She hung up. I stood by the window, staring into the night. Fine, just fine. If she wanted to play games, I'd play. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. There's a new development. I told him about Sarah's threat to falsely accuse me. After listening, he said, Mr. Clark, you mentioned you had a recording? Edo. In this conversation, the one where she threatened you, did you record that as well? I checked my phone. Yes. Excellent, the lawyer said. With these two recordings, on top of your other evidence, her false claim won't stand chance. But just to be safe, you should try to gather more evidence. What kind of evidence? Evidence of asset transfer, the lawyer said. If she's trying to move property out of her name, that will look very bad for her. Okay. After hanging up, I thought for a moment. The next day, I went back to the county recorder's office. I checked the records for the house again. No transfer had been filed, but I saw an appointment on the calendar. Sarah had an appointment scheduled for next Tuesday to transfer her half of the property to Mark Wagner. I stood there, staring at the screen. Good. So good. You're a real piece of work, Sarah. I took a picture of the screen and sent it to my lawyer. New evidence. His reply was swift. Mr. Clark, with this, she's got nowhere left to run. 9. Leo's transplant was scheduled for Wednesday. On Tuesday, I went to the county recorder's office. Mark and Sarah were both there. Their faces changed the moment they saw me. Ethan, what are you doing here? Just taking care of some business. I walked up to the counter. I'm here to cancel a transfer appointment. You, Sarah rushed towards me. What right do you have? I'm a co-owner of the property. I handed my ID to the clerk. She can't transfer the deed without my consent. The clerk took my ID and checked the system. That's correct, sir. This property is jointly owned. We cannot proceed with a transfer if one of the owners objects. Good. I turned to Sarah. Anything else you'd like to say? She was shaking with rage. You did this on purpose, Ethan. I did, I nodded. I absolutely did. You, Sarah, I looked at her. You and Mark conspired to transfer the house out of my name. Then you were going to falsely accuse me of abuse to make sure I was left with nothing. Is that about right? She didn't answer. Unfortunately for you, you were a step too slow. I pulled a folder of documents from my bag. Here are the screenshots of your text with Mark, planning to hide the assets. Here is the recording of you threatening to file a false police report. And here is the recording of you admitting to the affair. Sarah, do you have anything else to add? Her face was as white as a sheet. Mark stood beside her, silent. And you, Mark? I turned to him. Your son's transplant is tomorrow. You know that, right? I know. Are you going? What? You've been tested as a match, but you need to be there to sign the consent forms. I stared at him. Mark, your son is in a hospital bed waiting for your bone marrow. Are you going to show up or not? It's your choice. He stood there, his face shifting between anger and fear. Don't push me, Ethan. I'm not pushing you, I said. I'm just telling you the facts. He's your son. If you don't save him, no one will. The donor registry. There are no matches in the registry. I cut him off. You are his biological father. Your marrow is his best and only chance. If you're not there, he dies. He looked at me, then at Sarah. Sarah started to cry. Mark, please go. You have to go. Leo can't lose his father. I'm his father, not Ethan, Mark said in a low voice. Right? Sarah froze. That's right, I said. You're his father. So, it's up to you whether you save your son's life or not. Mark stood there in silence for a long time. I'll go. His voice was hoarse. I'll be there tomorrow. I nodded. Good. I turned and left. As I reached the door, Sarah called out behind me. Ethan. I stopped. I'm not backing down on the divorce, I said without turning around. I'll see you in court. 10. The surgery was a success. Leo's recovery was going well. Mark donated his bone marrow and didn't say a single word to me through the entire process. 3 days after the surgery, I went to the hospital to see Leo. He was sitting up in bed, looking much better than before. He smiled when he saw me. Ethan. Ethan, not Dad anymore. Sarah had told him the truth. My heart ached, but I managed to smile. How are you feeling, kiddo? Much better, he said. The doctor says I can go home in a few more days. That's great news. I didn't stay long. As I was leaving the room, Sarah caught up to me. Ethan, wait. What is it? She looked down at the floor. I wanted to apologize. Don't bother. No, really. She looked up, her eyes red. For the past 8 years, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. An apology doesn't change anything, I said, looking at her. Sarah, what you did can't be fixed with an apology. Then what do you want? I've already told you. My voice was flat. A divorce. I get the house and the car. You get nothing. I don't have any money. That's your problem. Ethan, she suddenly dropped to her knees. I'm begging you, for the sake of the 8 years we had. I looked at her kneeling on the floor. 8 years. 8 years of marriage. Sarah, I crouched down to her level. Kneeling won't do you any good. For 8 years, I gave you everything. My money, my time, my love. I thought you were my wife, and I thought Leo was my son. And what was the reality? She just cried, shaking her head. You were wrong, I said, standing up. And wrong has consequences. I turned and walked away. Behind me, the sound of her crying faded into the distance. 11. The divorce proceedings took 2 months. The judge ruled. The house was awarded to me. The car was awarded to me. Sarah was found to be the party at fault due to adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud by transferring assets. She was awarded no property. Furthermore, the court granted my request for damages for emotional distress, ordering Sarah to pay me $50,000. Combined with the $25,000 she had secretly given Mark, she now owed me a total of $75,000. The day the judgment was finalized, Sarah was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She had lost a lot of weight. She was wearing old clothes, her hair a mess. Ethan, what is it? The money. I really don't have it right now. Can I? You can pay me in installments, I said. I'm in no rush. She opened her mouth, but couldn't find the words. One more thing, I said, looking at her. The house is mine. The car is mine. And you can take your time paying back that $500,000. She just stood there as tears streamed down her face. Ethan, do you have to be so cruel? You were cruel first, I said, getting into my car. From now on, you're on your own. I started the engine and drove away. In the rearview mirror, her figure grew smaller and smaller. 8 years. It was finally over. 12. A year later, I was sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city skyline. I had a new job, making $150 a year. I bought a new car for $40,000. I lived alone. The place wasn't huge, but it was clean and it was mine. Life had started over. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my coworker, Dave. Hey man, I was out in the suburbs for a meeting today. I think I saw your ex-wife. Where? Out on the east side, in one of those older apartment complexes. She was with a kid. Looked like she was living there. Oh, she didn't look like she was doing too well, man. The clothes she was wearing were pretty worn out. I wouldn't know. Heard Mark Wagner's business went under. His wife divorced him and took half of everything. He's not doing so hot either now. Has nothing to do with me. True that, Dave replied with an emoji. You're living the dream now, man. Single, successful. Guys would kill to be in your shoes. I smiled but didn't text back. I put the phone down and kept watching the city. The sun was bright, its warmth spilling onto the floor. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Sarah. I stared at the name for a long time. I didn't answer. It rang a few more times, then went to voicemail. A moment later, it started ringing again. Still her. I put the phone on silent and set it aside. I stood up and walked to the window. Below, the streets were alive with cars and people, some laughing, some just walking. I remember a year ago, on a day just like this one, I stood outside the courthouse and watched Sarah walk away. How was she doing now? I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. Some people, some things are better left in the past. I went back to the sofa and picked up my mug. The phone screen lit up, then went dark again. Missed call, Sarah 3. I glanced at it, but didn't call back. I took a sip of tea and turned on the TV. The afternoon sun streamed in through the window, casting a golden glow on the floor. A new day, a new beginning. It felt good.